Hello, I'm Joshua Knuth, and today I'm going to walk you through how I go about painting Jeff Lumsden's still life lenses. First, and the most important thing we need is reference material. A can of Krylon matte finish, a good selection of small artist brushes, a good selection of watercolor pencils and colored drawing pencils. I like Prismacolor and Derwent. You're also going to want a small graphite pencil. I use a automatic drawing pencil. Next, we're going to need our paints. I use liquid scales, Pearl-Ex powders, and artist acrylics. All we need is our eye and we're ready to go. First, we're going to spray the back of the eye with the matte finish. This provides us with a little bit of tooth that'll help us with the colored pencils. Next, we're going to take a black watercolor pencil and we're going to start defining the shape and size of the iris of the eye. The nice thing with using a watercolor pencil is if you do make a mistake, you can just wash it away. Use a Q-tip or a small paintbrush, just scrub it away. You can also move the paint around pretty well. It's going to stay like this until we decide to seal it. Here I'm using a brown watercolor pencil, and again the goal is just to define the outside edge of that iris for now. We're not doing much detailing, just getting the basic size and shape. Next, we're using a small artist brush with just a little bit of water on it. This is enough to lift the paint up and move it around, soften that watercolor. And we're going to use that, go around the iris area we just colored in with the pencil, smooth it out, and sort of feather it into the iris a little bit. Next, I'm taking a graphite drawing pencil and I'm very lightly defining the shape and size of the pupil. I also put a small black dot in the center of the pupil just to make sure my centering is accurate. You don't want to press too hard, you just want a very faint line that you're able to see. Next, I'm using a small artist brush with some black acrylic paint to fill in the pupil. Use your pencil marks as your guide. This is one area where these lenses are just absolutely fantastic. They're fully customizable as far as pupil shape. Every species of fish you're going to find has got a slightly different pupil shape, whether it's a trout or a salmon or a bass or even a red horse or a sunfish. Next, I'm going to take a black watercolor pencil and start defining the shapes and patterns in the iris of the eye. Depending on the species, some will have a gold ring and some won't. In this case, it's going to have a faint gold ring, nothing too bold though. What I'll do in that case is leave a small negative space where I won't put any coloring, no colored pencils, around the pupil of the eye. Later on we'll put gold over that and that'll give us the gold ring. Carefully looking at the reference material, I'm shifting different colors now. I'll use a brown pencil, blacks, some golds, some greens. Again, looking at the reference, let that be your guide. It's going to look a little rough at this stage. You're going to see pencil lines and little dots and little markings. Some of those little dots we're going to want to keep, but some we're going to want to smooth out and feather into the iris, in which case we're going to use a small brush, slightly wet, and move that watercolor around. This is a fun stage because the eye really starts to come alive at this point. Just very carefully and very smoothly you can start adding color throughout the entire iris. It's going to stay transparent or translucent, and that's good because we're going to add metallics afterwards, and that's really going to give us our shine and shimmer. Next we go back in with the watercolor pencils to add some texturing and some color patterning around the actual eyeball itself. Then we grab the brush again and smooth that coloring out and feather that all the way up to the iris of the eye and all the way down to the edge of the eyeball. Next, we're going to start replicating the gold ring around the pupil. We don't want to go too intense with the gold, so we're just going to use a pale gold and really lightly go around the pupil, right in that little area where we never hit with the pencil, that little void there. And that's going to create our gold ring. Next, I'm going to start putting some of the brighter golds in. I'm use a little bit of the gold Pearl-X powder and just a tiny little bit of water with it. Just start dabbing that in. Again, this is all species specific. In this case, I want more gold showing through than other colors. If you wanted a silver eye or a little more red or a little green, you'd add the appropriate powders and metallics for that. Next, I'm going to add a little bit more metallics in there, using some white pearl and some pale gold, just really lightly going around to define the lighter parts of the eye. Next, I'm going to start adding some of the darker definitions in the eye. In this case, a faint dark ring that floats in the iris. We're going to use a little bit of black paint and keep it fairly thin, and just use the brush and slowly define that shape. Because the other colors are transparent, the black is going to show through. This is one of the final steps. This is how you really start to get good definition in the eye. If it were to be a species that have a bar in the eye or something along those lines, this is when you put that in. Next, I'm going to work in with a little bit of pearl and a little bit of gold and just feather the colors down the rest of the eye, down along the eyeball, along the sides of the eye. And here's our eye, all finished. You can see how those metallics really come through at this stage and just adds a lot of shimmer to the eye. Here's some other eyes I've painted using the same techniques, slightly different colors, slightly different variations, but the same basic concept throughout. Thanks for listening, and have fun and good luck.